I printed our rules at 3 a.m., promises from a 24-hour copy shop. I didn't come to make copies, I came to stop guessing. At 3 in the morning, the copy shop on Ninth has the spiritual clarity of a good fluorescent bulb. The self-serve machines hum like obedient beehives. A poster near the register smiles at you about tax season, which is either optimism or bullying. The floor smells like warm toner and effort. I took the corner table by the window because glass at night is the only mirror that minds its manners. My name is Evan. I draw road maps for a living, slides that tell tomorrow where to stand and for how long. For months my wife, Jade, and I had been living like two responsible manuals, thorough, available, only opened when something malfunctioned. We were great at logistics and very polite at love. We had become so tidy we could no longer tell what was kitchen and what was showroom. At 12:47, she texted, "We're behind on the art drop, might crash on the office sofa. Don't wait up." Not a lie. A hallway. I've followed enough hallways to know that the air gets thinner the longer you keep walking. The clerk behind the counter wore a name tag that said KIKI in cheerful caps. She looked up when the bell over the door obeyed its contract, gave me a nod that included neither welcome nor suspicion, and slid a box of paper toward a couple whose relationship with staplers was clearly combustible. When I approached with my empty hands, she angled her head, as if to ask what exactly needed duplicating. "Just time," I said before my mouth consulted the committee, "or clarity." "Glossy or matte," she deadpanned, which I respected. Then she pointed between two signs taped to the register. One read exact change after 2 a.m., the other read, written on a scrap of cardstock in fat marker, "No trials after 2." "That one's new," I said, pointing to the second. "Store policy," she said, "and life policy. If it's past 2, I only fix paper jams and tell the truth I can prove." She gestured to the coffee machine. "There's mercy over there. It's not good, but it tries." "Thanks," I said. I poured a coffee and took a sip that filed a report. Awake, but not impressed. I was halfway through convincing myself that the next sensible step would appear if I stared at the laminator long enough, when the bell chimed again, and Theo walked in, operations lead on Jade's team, the kind of man whose hands talk about tarps and whose eyes say he keeps receipts. He had a hoodie with our nonprofit's logo, a roll of gaffer tape sticking out of a tote, and the slow stride of someone expecting an empty store. He saw me. I saw him. Neither of us pretended the collator was louder than recognition. "Evan," he said, lifting his free hand the way you greet a shy cat. "Couldn't sleep." "Didn't want to guess," I said. He nodded like the line had earned its lamination. "We finished the east wall," he said, because that was the truth available to both of us. "Your wife fell asleep under a banner that says 'We build together.' The banner is not a blanket, but it's ambitious. She told me to go home twice. My apartment's a sink of clean dishes I keep forgetting to put away. Thought I'd print the morning labels now and make the sun think I'm useful." "You mind if I stay?" I asked, though I didn't move. "I mind trials after 2, he said, glancing at the sign. "I don't mind witnesses." He fed the machine a flash drive and punched buttons with the confidence of a man who knows where documents hide their shame. As the printer began coughing out letter-sized evidence of competence, he set the tote on the table opposite mine and sat with a weight that had asked permission first. "Don't owe you an explanation," he said to the space between us, "but here's one anyway. Jade's asleep. Not dramatic, not performing. Real asleep. She'll text when she wakes. If it were otherwise, I'd be somewhere that isn't full of paper." "Okay," I said. I believed him because he didn't ask me to. Kiki came by with a roll of tape and a 100-yard stare. If you need the guillotine cutter, be nice to it, she said. It's older than most apologies. Theo grinned. We'll only cut the things that asked for it. Kiki eyed the scrap about store policy. Gentle reminder, she added, tapping the no trials after 2 card, then returned to a jammed machine as if rescuing it might save the night's dignity. Theo glanced at my empty table. You two do rules, he asked. Not the chore list, the ones that tell you where to stand when the play's over and the lights come up. We do, I said. We used to treat them like vows, now we treat them like warranty cards. Print them, he said, and slid a blank sheet across the table along with a Sharpie that had survived many banners. Before daylight talks you into pretending you remember. I uncapped the marker. It smelled like new beginnings that had seen things. If a night lights you up, invite me while you're lacing your shoes. I'll come if I can. If I can't, I won't turn your light into a report. No photogenic secrets. Nothing we'd enjoy telling better without each other in the story. Touch in daylight every day. Even just a wrist at the sink, a forehead in the hallway, a sleeve while the kettle argues. Right of reserve. When the voice wants to climb, step back and read the scoreboard before you rename the game. If either of us starts wanting to be wanted somewhere else, say it while it's small, not after it has luggage. NB, rules are tools, not weapons. I slid the sheet to Theo. He read without grating. Add eat before you try to win, he said. Donuts before weapons, my crew chief swore by it. Civilization, I said, and wrote it with the ego a footnote earns when it keeps the peace. My phone skittered on the table, screen up. Jade, half asleep here, don't drive, breakfast. Jay, a second bubble, come see the floor at 8, we'll pull tape together. Relief didn't throw confetti. It redistributed load. Good, Theo asked, not nosy, just operational. Better, I said, she invited. We printed the rules in 72-point type because sometimes the house needs to read across the room. Kiki watched the pages slide out and nodded like a forewoman counting beams. Nice font choice, she said. Not trying too hard. She pointed to a laminator. Give them armor if you want them to survive the fridge. Theo laminated with a competence that made me think he'd done stranger things for less noble reasons. He sealed the page, trimmed it with the guillotine, and held it up to the light like a strange stained glass. Signed by midnight, he said. Ratified by toner. Witnessed by coffee, Kiki added, topping off our cups. Blessed by exact change. We split a microwaved blueberry muffin because strategy requires calories. At 4:05 a.m. the door chimed again, and a teenager in a prom dress came in with a fistful of creased photos and a look that said, I need help my life will not give me. Kiki handled it with an efficiency that respected emergency and fashion. Theo packed his tote. I rolled the rules like a quiet weapon we had agreed not to use. Dawn has the decency to look different even when nothing else has changed. The gym smelled like lemons and promises. The tape on the floor sulked in blue lines. Jade waited by the door with 2 coffees, and the face she wears when the next hour will include repetitive labor and small victories. Her hair had made practical decisions. Her hoodie said last night was on purpose. Breakfast, she said. Copies, I said, and unrolled the sheet. She read it with the kindness she reserves for drafts that want to live, and the ruthlessness she uses on anything that wastes volunteers' time. No trials after 2, she said, smiling with the right half of her mouth. That one has Theo's fingerprints. Credit him, I said. Credit Kiki's marker, too. She tucked the page into her hoodie pocket like a passport. Come pull tape, she said. If that's not an invitation, throw me out. We worked. Tape lifted and complained. We pretended not to understand complaints that don't change outcomes. A volunteer named Ramon pointed to a stubborn line, and Jade stared at it until it recalled that it was tape and not plot. Theo moved through the edges with quiet authority, the kind that doesn't audition. Someone brought a pink box because civilization. I pointed to the rules and Jade laughed. Donuts before weapons, she decreed, and nobody argued because sugar argues better than pride. We talked less about last night than about today's grip strength. Theo taught a teenager how to coil cord without making future neckties. The teenager learned fast and pretended not to be proud. Jade touched my wrist in passing, the daylight version, legal and small, and said, "Daylight." And I said, "Daylight," and Theo, carrying a ladder as if it were a standard, said, "Daylight," in a tone that failed to be religious by a respectable margin. Between waves, Jade looked at me. "Let's admit something while it still fits in a sentence," she said. "Okay." "We got polite," she said. "I want to get exact." "Exact is a quiet revolution," I said. "I pledge wrist and invitation." "I pledge invitation, not subpoena," she said. "When I text come, I mean stand next to me while I do the thing I chose, not rescue me from consequences. When you text come, I will arrive without a gavel." "Deal," I said. "Also right of reserve, scoreboard before renaming the game." "And no photogenic secrets," she added, glancing toward the door where strangers arrived carrying their mornings. We taped the rules inside the supply closet because everyone needs a break room god. At noon, when the floor was ready for feet and the garbage knew its place, Jade tore a strip of blue tape and stuck the rules on the inside of our car's sun visor, where important things go to ride shotgun. At home, we moved them to the fridge under the magnet shaped like a boat we bought one summer we didn't ruin. I drew a grid on the back and filled the square labeled wrist because completion, when it's honest, is a tiny democracy you can win without applause. That week we argued at 3 like citizens and split a donut like a treaty at 4. On Thursday, I closed my laptop at 10 because the wrist rule refuses to enforce itself. On Friday, she texted, "Come," and I held a door for 15 minutes while a line of people who weren't me had their burdens made lighter by seriousness. And I called that love instead of martyrdom because I am trying to be exact. Sometimes nights still crack down the middle. When they do, I drive to the copy shop, buy a coffee that performs its job description without flourish, and sit under the sign that says no trials after 2 as if it were a secular psalm. If Theo walks in, we compare knots and policies like men who have learned to love maintenance. If Kiki's on shift, she tops off our cups and asks if the rules are holding. When I say yes with an asterisk, she raises both eyebrows as if to say, "Welcome to paper." If you came for scandal, I owe you a more interesting marriage and a less decent copy shop. Here, what I have: a laminated sheet with 6 lines, a floor that forgave tape, a clerk who knows the difference between a jam and a crisis, and 2 people who decided that the opposite of a secret isn't a confession, it's an invitation. The rest is upkeep. Donuts before weapons, no trials after 2, hands steady on tape and ladders, and a wrist touched every day in daylight. The exact instant a life decides to stay where it's wanted.